Hey there, I'm out in Ouray and I'm just climbing some backcountry ice here in Ouray, Colorado. And I wanted to talk a little bit about ice gloves because gloves are incredibly important in ice climbing, but they're actually important in all mountain pursuits. So we're going to talk about some features of gloves and what to look for when you're out looking around for a good glove to climb ice as opposed to a good glove for maybe mountaineering. So let's take a look at some. So the first type of gloves I'm going to take a look at are just pure soft-shelled gloves that have a little bit of insulation. And these are made by Mountain Equipment. They do not have any waterproofing in them. They are very tight, close-fitting, and they have a sticky palm on one side and then leather on the other. And the reason that this type of glove is actually my favorite ice climbing glove, and I tend to use these maybe 90% of the time, is because when you have a waterproof liner inside a glove, waterproof liners tend to be made out of a slippery fabric, and it causes slip between an insulating layer or a soft shell layer and that waterproof layer. And what that means is it reduces your dexterity, and if your gloves get wet, it reduces your ability to grip onto things as the material tends to pull away from the waterproof fabric. So when I'm leading, in particular, I favor thin gloves that are lightly insulated, very flexible with no waterproof lining. And you can see, these just have remarkable dexterity. They allow you to swing the tool with a lot of precision. And I can tie knots with them. I can belay with them, a lot of other things. But when we get into belay gloves, there are other features that I'm looking for. So that's the next thing that I'm going to talk about. Okay, so now we're going to talk about belay gloves. So this is one of my favorite belay gloves. This is made by Outdoor Designs. I believe it's called the Diablo Soft Shell. And what makes this a great belay glove is it's more insulated than my typical lead gloves. It's affordable, which is great because belay gloves you're going to end up working with ropes quite a bit. And it has a leather palm that's reasonably durable. And it still has really good dexterity. So when I'm at the belay and I have to clip and unclip carabiners, screw locking gates, maybe tie or untie knots, these are still sufficient for that. Maybe not as dexterous as my lead gloves. They're still pretty good. But really, affordability and durability start to play a big role when you want a belay glove. Now, if I was going to be, say, in the Ouray Ice Park belaying for hours and things like that, and it tends to be not particularly cold temps as opposed to backcountry ice, then I might just choose an insulated work glove, and that tends to work fine. But for a backcountry belay glove, this is a perfect candidate. So when you're in the market, look for something cheap, durable, and dexterous. This next type of glove I'm going to talk about is a waterproof glove. And this one happens to have a gauntlet. This is an old Alpine glove by Outdoor Research. It's no longer made, but there are plenty of other gloves like this on the market. One of my favorite currently still on the market is a Punisher by Black Diamond. And what I'm looking for in a waterproof glove, ironically, is not a lot of insulation still. The more insulated you get your glove, almost always the less dexterous it is, and the less you'll have the ability to manipulate carabiners, to belay, and certainly to climb. So a waterproof glove like this, I typically reserve for easier pitches of ice where it might be especially cold outside or it might be especially wet. So if I'm climbing, say, a 5-pitch route, maybe it goes at WI4 or something like that, then I would climb in these gloves and the wet ice from up to all the other pitches other than the WI4 cruxes, perhaps, and then I would change into my more dexterous soft shells, right? Or you could have a WI4 pitch that's quite picked out, right, later in the season, and then I might just climb in these. The other nice thing about having a pair of gloves like this is if you're not leading all the time, you might not even need to put on a pair of lead climbing gloves. You might be able to follow all the pitches in this, and this might have as much dexterity as needed. So a few features that I really like in waterproof gloves. As mentioned previously, you don't want to have too much insulation on the palm. You want to have a close fit, so it's important you try these gloves on. You don't want to go and just look at advertising and marketing online because they're going to tell you all kinds of awesome things and it doesn't amount to anything if it doesn't fit your hand well. So you need to try the glove on. I like to have a sticky leather palm if possible. And there are a few companies that are making a nice sticky leather. And a Gore-Tex insert is pretty nice, but Gore-Tex also, BD dry tends to work pretty well. The camp gloves, they have their own membrane. They tend not to be quite as good as the BD dry or the Gore-Tex in my experience. And then having a gauntlet is also pretty nice, because when you are climbing wet ice and things like that, your hand is over your head, that water tends to run down, and this will keep it out from inside your jacket, as opposed to having a tighter fitting lead glove without the gauntlet. So those are a few nice things to look for if you happen to be climbing wet ice or in really cold conditions, where that membrane will actually trap a little bit more heat, allow you to climb in a little bit more comfort, minus a bit of dexterity.